Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm just doing a process video of this page. I did want to do something with my Christmas decorations, and this is the inspiration that hit me. I do love my Christmas tree and I love my decorations. So I just started by pencil sketch and I drew the Nutcracker. It's such an easy sketch, pretty much anybody can do this. He is just a regular Nutcracker, one of the ones that I have, and I didn't even put him in front of me. I just used some of my imagination and some of what I really have. Just a little rough sketch, and then I'm just using a fine line with black pen. This particular one is actually waterproof when dry, so and it's super fine, and it's a really inexpensive pen. So now I'm just going to outline and add a bit more detail as I'm outlining. So my pencil sketch is just like a rough sketch, and then I kind of detail it a little bit more when I put the pen into my hand. Boy, I wish I could actually draw this fast, for real. So I will actually chop out little bits and pieces simply so that you don't have to sit through every millimeter of me drawing or painting things. But it just gives you an idea of how to do it if you feel inspired to try a page like this. The thing I find with drawing something like a Nutcracker or a Christmas decoration is you're not trying to make it realistic to what a human would be. It's just really an ornament or a toy or just a wooden decor piece, so it's kind of easy to sketch them out. I also am very detail orientated. Those who know me well will know this about me. I am super detail orientated. So one of the things I wanted to do on this page was I wanted to use kind of a bit of a diamond check background, which I'll be doing later on, and so I've picked that up onto his sleeves, and then all these like little crisscrosses, they all mirror that diamond check design. And I think that if you're doing pages, it's kind of nice to have a theme picked up here. You know, it doesn't have to be repeated often, but just repeated a little bit really makes it all tie together. So now I actually am using a ballerina ornament from my tree. I am a ballet teacher, so I do have a lot of ballet ornaments. Most of them have been given to me by my students, including this little one. And I have this kind of concept in my head of she's hanging on my tree and she's looking at the Nutcracker, sort of saying, "Come and dance with me." Of course, a very famous ballet in the ballet world at Christmas time is the Nutcracker. And so that's kind of what I'm playing off of here, as well as playing off of the fact that I have an overactive imagination. When I look at my Christmas tree, I definitely see little stories happening between different ornaments depending on my placement. And so now I'm just going to draw in a simple ball ornament, and I've decided I wanted like a snowflake ornament. And for the snowflake ornament, I'm actually using a stamp. This is just a really big snowflake, and I'm stamping it in embossing powder, and I'm just embossing it with a hologram embossing powder. There was still some dye on that stamp, and I didn't worry about cleaning it off because I kind of knew that it would transfer a little bit onto my page and give a little definition to the stamp. And then just detailing the ornament. Not much to detail in a simple ball. And so now here I'm just using watercolor markers for the basic. I'm sorry, there's a Santa piece of paper. It was just a sketch I was doodling with. and I'm just using him to block out that piece of paper, to block out where the straight line of the soldiers or the Nutcracker's arm is. So I'm just putting in Christmas tree flicky flacks, I like to call them, for the branches. And this is just a lovely kind of a pine cone-ish kind of green, no, pine needle green. And because it's a water marker, and it's just like a Tombow marker, so you know, use whatever markers you have if you're doing watercoloring. If it's a watercolor marker, it's water soluble forever kind of thing. So here I'm just going in with some watercolor, and I'm very diluted, same kind of color of green. If it was a Tim Holtz color, I would call it peel paint for sure. So very peeled paintish looking. And I've also added in some sort of dark, almost like that really dark blue green. And so I'm just mixing this in. And I'm not being super careful. It is just a journal page, and I don't get super worried about imperfections or whatever on a journal page, because I mean, a journal page is it's a fun thing to do, and it's nice to be really loose with it and not feel obligated to make everything absolutely perfect. And also, I think that we tend to get so carried away sometimes with the background, we forget that we really want to bring the eyes to the foreground or to your main focal points. So it's literally just adding in some color and making sure that all of the tree is really covered. And as I say, there's a little bit of like a turquoise that I've added in there, and that worked really well. So that looks like my Christmas tree. And now I'm just going to do some background coloring, and I'm just going to use like some browns and slightly rusty colors, and very watery. And I'm not, again, worrying about going into the tree. In fact, I'm kind of hoping to pick up some of the greens and let that pull into the background a little bit. Being a little bit careful around my main focal points, obviously. So just real rough coloring. And now here comes this diamond stencil. THS 016. A nice, well-loved stencil, Tim Holtz, one of the Tim Holtz ones. I'm going to use two colors with this. I'm going to use Distress Oxide in Vintage Photo, and I'm also going to use Distress Oxide in Salvaged Patina. And I'm just going to be doing these at the same time. I'm using two different blending tools because I do not want to put brown into blue or blue into brown. And I'm filling in kind of the background where there is no tree. So I'm going to just be creating a little bit of interest in that background there. I'm just showing you in real time a little bit that you can see what this looks like and how easy it is to do. Put more of the patina. Blues and browns are so beautiful together. They just really are. Just fast forward here. So of course I'm putting this over most of the background, and again mixing the two colors. And I'm going to take a stamp. This is a checked stamp from Stampers Anonymous. And I'm just going to use the brown. So this is Vintage Photo, Distress Oxide, and I'm just filling in any other little gaps. And now I'm using this stencil. I'm using these two stencils. One will be with ink, and one will be with paste. So Rustic Wilderness, it's just picking up the green from the trees. I'm just going to pop tiny bits of this into the background, making it have a little bit more cohesion color-wise. So I'll just show you slow-mo how little I'm using, just tiny little bits with this kind of cathedral-y window looking stencil, which is one of his newer ones, also Tim Holtz. So any little areas where I feel that there's like a little blank area, or, and in some instances going over some of the other bits and pieces in the background, but just pulling all of that together. And I feel like the green on the background stops the tree from really standing out too crazily. Okay, fast forward that. And now I'm just using the stencil, which is all just words, written words in a foreign language. I think that probably Dutch or German, I have no idea, but anyway, I'm using this just to pick up again some detail in the background and make it not too blank. So I have to let that dry, obviously, and I don't ever use a heat tool on paste. I just, personal preference, I just like it to dry naturally so that it doesn't get any little bubbles in it. When you heat dry paste, sometimes it bubbles up on you. I'm not kind of crazy about that. So now I'm using Versafine Clear and Nocturne, which is just really a black. I'm using a flat tool this time. Instead of a domed tool, blending tool, I'm using a flat one because I want to really pick up on the writing. And you can see how beautifully that picks up all of that stenciling that I did in the background. So that's like really, it's 3D, but it's also now nice and black, so pretty cool. So now I'm just going to make the snowflake ornament pop a little bit. I'm using this really beautiful dark blue, but it's kind of it's like between a royal blue and a navy blue. And then I'm also picking up some details in white, just in little bits here and there, and going around the edge just to make it look more like it's an ornament and not an actual snowflake, so it's as if it's hanging on the tree. And then I decided I wanted some more glitter on it. It wasn't glittery enough for my, if it was hanging on my tree it would be super glittery. So this is a great way of using glitter without getting glitter everywhere, is the stickles. So this is stickles called Crystal. I just place it all the way around the edge. And once I've done all the way around the edge, you pretty much don't need to add any more stickles. I just, from there, I'll just pull it in from the edge to the circle, little bits. So I just do like a very loose scribble within here, because I'm going to use a paintbrush to cover. So this is just one of my watercolor paintbrushes. And so I'm just pulling from the outside where the glitter was placed into the middle, and I'm just going over everything. I'm not being fussy about anything. Yes, it is watercolor markers that I've used on there, but I just did a little jump there so you can see. But it just all really works well for me. But now I have a nice glittery piece. And later on I will just do some black shadowing on the outside of this snowflake when it's dry, to again just make it pop away from the tree and make it look like it's hanging as an ornament on my tree. I also stuck some jewels on. These are little opalescent jewels, and so they just pick up on the sparkle. So again, I'm just using watercolors, so sometimes I'm using crayons, but mostly watercolor markers I should say. Mostly I'm just using my watercolor pen and my watercolors, and I'm going to start adding color onto this ball. Show you little bits in real time so you can see how slowly I actually do paint. This is my actual speed. And I'm going to pretty much cover most of it with color because I'm going to use white acrylic paint to create the highlights. So I'm not really fussing too much about leaving white areas. If you do want to leave white areas and you don't have acrylic paint that you can use to highlight, then you can actually get masking fluid, and you can just use masking fluid to do that, but I just do it the lazy way. I put white on afterwards. And it's funny how when you add the highlights, it really adds dimension to the ball. And then I just added a very sheer layer of a pearl glaze on top of it, which is just like a pearl, like a matte medium, only in pearl. And then just colouring in my Nutcracker. I'm using like light blues and greys for his beard and hair, and then I will just use a highlighting pen in white to pull details back into that. So these again just watercolor markers, white pen there, just white jelly pen to just pull out some highlights into his hair. And you can see I'm actually mixing. I'm using zig markers, and then I'm just using regular watercolor markers that I don't even know where I bought them from. They're like Tombow markers, and I've had them for a long time. They're literally very inexpensive ones that I usually use my Tombows. So I'm just going to show you here how I do the crown in the gold. So I have a plain yellow, and I'm using like a darker, almost like a brownish mustardy yellow. I'm just doing tiny little dots into this gold part, and I'll be doing this on her crown, and I'll be doing that on his epaulettes as well. So just doing the tiny little dots, and then I'll use the plain yellow again, the lighter yellow, and I'm just going to blend those colors in, and it just makes it look like it's a textured area instead of just flat. Some shadowing. Detailing him up with some blacks and some greys. And what I like to do is, once I've done all the colouring, is I like to go in and outline everything again in a bit of a sharper black to pull all the details back to the front. So just using those same two shades of yellow, like a bright yellow, and then this kind of mustardy, slightly brownish grayish tone to it. I don't know what to really call it, for light and shade within my yellows. And then I will always go in later on and add some blacks and some whites to all of the details. You can see as colour starts being added to him that he starts having a bit of a life. So I just kind of jump around in this area so that you don't have to watch me colouring every millimetre of him. I'm pretty much using red and pink. You can see the two colours. One's a proper red, and then the other one's kind of a dark pink for his red parts. So the highlights are really in pink. And then for his leggings, I'm using very pale blue and then greys and blacks to create his legs, and some shadowing. And then his boots I'm pretty much also doing in obviously mostly black, but dark greys and light greys, and letting some light and shade fall onto them. And then again I will use a white highlighter, a white jelly pen, just to pull some light into these. So there's the white detailing going in, and it always makes such a difference. And then just starting on her little face, I am using some of the same colors on her as I've used in his tunic, this pink in particular, because it just will again tie her in and make them have like as if the same light is touching them. It's a little bit of that kind of pinky colouring into her arms, and then going into the more flashy colours. Adding some shadows. You can see the shadow on her legs where one leg is crossed and where the skirt will be touching, and where her arms are crossed, and then just detailing up the silver top of this little ball. You can see me just adding black on the outside there. There's that same technique with the crown that I used on his epaulets and his crown, just to create a little feel of texture and light, sparkling and glittery light. You can see me just detailing in here. Just pale pinks. So she's got these pinks and yellows on her. And then I just used a watercolor brush to just blend some of this color in to make it a little bit diffused and as if it's chill, which is the actual ballerina has a chill skirt, even though the rest of her is plastic. Again, adding some white highlights always makes such a big difference. And then detailing her up, especially all the way around the edge. She's got such delicate little legs and feet. So you can see I'm just going to go around the outside edge of him and add some shadowing. So I use like a black liner first, and then I use like a dark grey, and then I just use a lighter grey to blend that into the background so that they look like they are a little bit more popped away from the background. It's a good little technique for art journal pages. It doesn't necessarily work when you're doing art, but in art journaling pages, this is a really fast and easy technique to make your subject pop a wee little bit. I'm doing the same around the ball, giving it a little shadowing. I'm just going back in with some more black to just do all the way around the edges with black, and also make sure that the writing is all nice and strongly highlight or low lit, I should say, with the black, and then giving it a nice strong black edge. Works quite nicely for me. So while it has some areas of sparkle, it's not overdone. So thank you for watching, and I wish you everything of the best for the new year. And if you like, please hit subscribe and the notification button, and we'll hopefully catch up real soon.